friends. So, I talk about accountability a lot on this channel, but it's certainly not for no reason. It's because having it is really, really important, and I don't feel like it's something that comes naturally to everyone. I think some people really need to work hard at it sometimes. I mean, think about this for a second. When you are a child and you get caught doing something wrong, what tends to be the most common reaction? Yep, ding ding, to blame someone else. It's funny how often we actually do this, even when the notion that someone else did the deed that your caretaker caught you doing is utterly ridiculous. For a brief example, I got in trouble for drawing on the wall once when I was about 3 or so. I don't remember too much about the drawing itself, just that it was a stick figure, and then when nobody noticed, I drew something else next to it a couple days later. I do vividly remember what happened when the work of art was found by my mom. In case I ever tried to forget, she has reminded me many times over the years. Anyway, when confronted with the quintessential parent question, who did this? I immediately, and without hesitation, blamed my dad. I'm an only child, so, no brother or sister to blame, and my dad wasn't home at the time, so I threw him right under the bus. Now, I have to laugh when I think about how dumb this is because, well, first of all, my dad wouldn't have drawn things on the walls, but also, my dad was actually really good at drawing. He had gone to school to be an architect, and he had some skills, and amazingly neat penmanship, too. When writing a letter for some official reason, he would literally draw a thin line in pencil on the envelope before he addressed it to make sure his lettering was straight. Yeah, he was that guy. So I'm pretty sure that if he were to draw on the walls, he could have come up with something way better than 3-year-old me did. But anyway, the point of the story is to drive home how really innate the behavior of dodging responsibility is. I think that our immature brain, as a younger person, for lack of a better term, is very much on board with the notion that if you feel like you can get away with something such as dodging blame or accountability, that you will at least think about it or maybe even try it. There are always exceptions to this, of course, but so know that I am speaking in generalities here, as I tend to do. While I think most of us grow up and out of that kind of behavior and learn to be responsible for our own actions, there are some people who don't do any of that. Who, no matter what, will always blame someone else for everything, and I do mean every single thing. Nothing is ever their fault, no matter what. And no amount of convincing them to do the right thing and accept a responsibility will ever work. All those paragraphs you write to them explaining how what they did hurt you or affected you adversely or how they are unfairly blaming you for something that you didn't do is a waste of time. No amount of pleading, begging, threatening, jumping through hoops to appease them is going to work either. You're wasting your time, and you really should just stop. It's not going to make a difference, because the truth that I alluded to in the thumbnail for this video is this. Some people will never take ownership of their actions. They will literally go to their deathbeds denying that they are at fault for anything or that they are wrong in any way. And this is true for some folks even when there is an abundance of evidence that proves they are wrong or even flat out lying. That's just how they are. And if you have been watching this channel for a while, you know how much I absolutely loathe that sentiment. It is one of the biggest BS excuses on the planet. That's just how I am, or that's just my personality, is not an acceptable excuse for doing people dirty, or treating people badly, or being insensitive towards their feelings, or betraying them, or hurting them. It is not actually an acceptable excuse ever. It's a cop-out, and honestly, it's very dismissive of the other person's feelings. And it's emotionally immature, too. Look, every single person on earth is responsible for their own behavior and actions, period. As an adult, it is your responsibility to figure out what your own toxic behaviors and traits are. It's your responsibility to work on fixing those things so that you do not negatively impact other people, so that you do not treat people that love you like garbage or make them pay for emotional debts that are not theirs. So that you are not out here ruining other people's lives. That may sound a little bit dramatic, but it's really not. If a person is well aware of what their own problematic behavior is, and they bring those things into their relationships with other people, knowing full well that it's going to hurt someone else because they're not going to change it, that person is not a good person. That person is an evil jerk. Good people do not go around dodging accountability for their actions or blame things on some unseen force of that's just who I am, because that is an acceptable reason to hurt someone else 0% of the time. The truth is that every single one of us have room for improvement in our lives and how we live it. Nobody is perfect. And at some point, a mature adult needs to take an honest look at themselves and see what they can do to grow and be a better individual, to be a better partner or friend or parent or sibling or whatever, to be a better person, period. If you truly believe that you don't have room for improvement anywhere in your life, that you don't need to change anything at all about yourself, not even the very worst things that exist within you, those things that you know are problematic, that people are just going to have to deal with it because that's just how you are, then you're still a child, a petulant one at that. And this needs to be said at this juncture. When people say things like, that's just who I am, they often think that they're being authentic. And authenticity is something that I also talk a lot about on this channel. But authenticity has to have some guardrails because no person is alone on this earth. Other people are here too. Therefore, your authenticity should not be rooted in being a jerk to those other people. That isn't real authenticity. That is self-centeredness. Authenticity without empathy is just selfishness. Authenticity without boundaries is short-sighted and careless. Being authentic or true to yourself does not need to come at the expense of being kind and considerate to other people. If there is something about all of this that someone does not understand, then they have work to do. Sorry to say. The path to doing this very important work starts with accountability, taking responsibility for yourself and your actions, owning your stuff, being mature enough to work through your issues and your traumas instead of just using it as a blanket excuse for bad behavior. One more time for the people in the back. Accountability. It is on page 1 of the Being a Mature Adult handbook. The thing is that you cannot force anyone to read that handbook or learn anything from it or follow it. You have to let people come to that on their own. So when you are faced with a situation where you know that you're not being treated well or in the way that you deserve, when you are letting people get away with things that you're not comfortable with constantly, you have some things to let sink in and some decisions to make. Let it sink in that this person is most likely never going to change into someone who is suddenly very self-aware and takes responsibility for themselves. It can happen, of course, but it is rare because it's a lot of work and a lot of hard conversations that need to take place within somebody for it to actually happen. And let's be honest, a lot of people just don't want to do that work. So then, what do you do with this? Like, how do you deal with it when you are found in a situation with a person that you are in a relationship of significance with who is exhibiting these behaviors? Do you just resign yourself to this being your lot in life, so to speak? Put the life you actually want on hold because you're so busy putting up with infinite amounts of this person's nonsense? Keep allowing them to normalize things that are not normal? Keep forcing yourself to accept the unacceptable because you know that they are not going to change? All of that sounds exhausting. So I think you know what the answer is here. It's going to be different for everyone, of course, but something to keep in mind is that it's time to move on with your life. It's a simple phrase, but it is also a complete sentence. And sometimes simplicity says it most profoundly. That's all I've got for you this week. I'll be back next week with another priority message. Until then, take good care of yourselves. Bye.